ultimately, this dichotomy between consciousness and Prakriti, philosophically speaking, is established. But the process, so how it happens, is far more subtle than that. It's not through polarization. It's only a retrospective. Then you have the magician and the rabbit. The magician never becomes a rabbit, but he's such a good magician that he acts as if he is a rabbit, and everybody thinks he's a rabbit. There's a carrot, and the carrot is gone, and the rabbit ate it. He's very good. He's very fast, but he always remains the magician. When the show is over, then he's still the magician. He never became a rabbit. It just seemed like. So, in the Jnana Purusha is the, I would not say the witnessing entity, but it's the controlling entity of the rabbit. And the Krita Purusha is the magician. And it's good to use the term magician here because it's what Krita Purusha does is hidden from us. It's hidden from physics. And still to this day it is hidden from quantum field theory. Although quantum field theory is very, 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 very profound. Very much.
Have something to do with this polarization? It comes from seeing the world as the world instead of seeing it as God.
It's the form it takes. That the polarized state. That's how the world exists ultimately. Then you experience really a dichotomy. And it's this dichotomy which we try to resolve through spiritual practice, through bliss practice actually. So it exists ultimately, or it seems to exist, as a polarized state, as a dichotomy. Maybe it's simpler to explain it using Chinese terms. They say in the Tao, the yin and the yang, they are like one. One cannot be this, and the other is beautiful. You cannot tell one from the other. There's no one more important. Together they are Tao. They're indiscriminable. Then in the first stage of creation, they start to sense each other. There's some little bit polarization going on. And then they start to really interact, and ultimately are completely polarized. Then you have a dichotomy between yin and yang. However, in Chinese cosmology, we don't have these subtleties and these progressive elements as they are introduced by Sarkar, for example. Chinese cosmology is more like a state of the art. So the way how you use the I Ching is more like I don't know the English term, like explanatory than in an intrinsic progressive way. And our Brahmachakra philosophy is intrinsically progressive, and Microvita science is implicitly progressive. you understand? No, I mean.
It sounds compelling though, but yeah, I don't.
No, I mean it's too much technical. If you could just think of this bifurcation as almost the prakriti of Microvita cosmology. The other term which very much applies, which Baba also uses, is swabhav. And in this function of consciousness, when you take everything I said now here and everything of the Brahmachakra philosophy and everything together, this all comes down to the cosmic nucleus. And this all comes down to this one single sutra, Paramashiva Purushottama Vishvasya Kendra. Paramashiva, so the universal consciousness, becomes a nucleus of the universe. And then Sarkar makes, I'm using the name Sarkar just for convenience, uses a very remarkable comment to his own sutra where he says basically this cosmic nucleus, this Purushottama, is the swabhava, means of this universe, and swabhava, he says, means the characteristic bearing of consciousness. This is how consciousness works. There's no prakriti there even. Swabhava is how consciousness works, how it works. This is how the magician goes about creating rabbits while still remaining himself. And the scientific or the technical approach to Swabhava is self-reference.
If I imagine a rabbit in my mind, I'm still myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
is there some parallelism there? With the
Yeah,
cosmic
but then you,
consciousness
yes, but with
that
these,
I still need to use means when I imagine a
yeah,
rabbit in my mind, I am creating something.
yes, but these kind of analogies are typically used in this kind of psycho-spiritual context. It's psychological, it's very educative, it's easy accessible. We are doing here now the real kind of the more difficult kind of stuff. So and you can simplify it with analogies, but the challenge here is really to grasp the subtlety of the approach. And it's not complicated, but it's subtle and it's new. Sarkar himself says it's a new line of thinking. And I've really, in writing and in talking, emphasized it billions times. It's a new line of thinking. Yeah, but Brahmachakra. So no, it's a new line of thinking. Yes, but in Brahmachakra, where are Microvita in Brahmachakra? I don't know. Where are elephants in Brahmachakra? I don't know. I mean, elephants have a body made of the fundamental factors, and they have a mind, which is in Pratisanshara. So where are elephants in Brahmachakra? I don't know. We went through that in the other day. Brahmachakra is just Mahat Aham, Chitta, Chitta Ahapa, and that's it, nothing more. And all the rest is just artistry to make it beautiful and to make it appealing, which is very good. And it's not even wrong. It's not even wrong.
If we start approaching the application of applied micro-vitae theory.
Yes, that's there. Actually, shall we proceed to that, Ada? I very much appreciate your questions, but and again, we go to the practical side now. If you imagine the pulse, like in a heartbeat, you could theoretically, if you do it very cleverly, you could imagine that if you create the same heartbeat, so to speak, artificially, you could at least have some benefits from what's going on. So again, as a working hypothesis, and to kind of make it simple, you could imagine, and this is really very innovative future thinking, but I think we need to go there really, considering that we don't have sustainable solutions for our energy needs. You could imagine a situation where we artificially create a very rudimental ectoplasm. Okay, now this sounds very off-worldly, you know, but if you look back at how the chlorophyll molecule, so the chlorophyll molecule is created, and we try to understand that molecule and what it does in the context of microvita science, then you could have an idea how nature does it. So I'm suggesting here that we develop technology based on how nature functions, but not in the traditional way, but in a way based on microvita science. So we use the microvita theory as a way how to use nature as an example for new technologies of the future. We can get into more detail right now here. Basically, you could wrap this up. Creation is bifurcation, is pulsation, is the Swabhava. This is maybe a little bit simplified here, but just to get a handle on the whole thing, this pulsation is very central, and I gave the heart as an example. And so within the pulsation, the self-similar process of consciousness is captured in one single point. But this pulsation is very central. Another way to approach is with electricity you have direct current, then you have alternating current, which was introduced by Nikola Tesla, and then you have pulsating current or voltage, which is pulse, yes, like the heart, boom, 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 which is spectrally decomposed as a harmonic series. If you have harmonic series of waves, they together form pulses. And this pulse exists on the silver lining, using Sarkar's phrase. This pulsation exists at the silver lining between matter and abstract, or between matter and spirit. And unlike direct current or alternating current which is used industrially. But you could imagine alternating current is not just direct current which is alternating. You enter in a new realm of possibilities. With alternating current you can do fundamentally new things which you cannot do, which you cannot possibly achieve with direct current. It's subtler. And likewise pulsative current is still again subtler than AC, than alternating current. It's more like a field effect than a local effect. So there's a whole lot of things you can do with it, and a little bit I want to touch upon that right now, if it comes. Well, this is again the heartbeat, and this is the heartbeat. Everybody knows the ECG. I took it with the software I was just mentioning. This is my own software. It's an original recording, and then below it's a spectral picture, the spectrum decomposition, which, by the way, many cardiologists are not even aware of. I need to explain them sometimes. The heart has this spectrum. It looks a little bit like the heartbeat itself, just the same shape, but it's just coincidence. It has a very distinct series of spectral frequencies. So if you put all these frequencies together, then you get the heartbeat again. This is just standard. There's nothing new here. Okay, now from after having suffered all this, we are going to do a little bit quantum physics. Very simple. Even before the Bohr atom, then we are speaking early 1900s, maybe 1910 or so. This idea of the Bohr atom came up, but even before that, the Greek had the idea of atomos, which was just billiard balls. No, we know that's not the case. So then the Bohr atom came. They did the Bohr-Sommerfeld experiments from which they could infer that the atom was basically almost empty and that there were electrons cycling around it. But this idea was not sustainable for technical reasons, which I won't mention here. And then came de Broglie, or as we say on the continent, de Broglie. And he said, no, these electrons are not particles, these are waves, these are matter waves. They are very small, mini Brahma chakras going around the cosmic nucleus. It's the same thing. Brahma chakra is a matter wave also. And then so the hydrogen atom has, as you go here, has different energy levels. When
so you're talking about multiverse?
Hydrogen atoms.
Mini Brahma chakras?
No, I mean Brahma chakra can apply to everything. That's the idea. I mean the way we generally take it is on the most biggest scale.
He's talking like microcosmic.
Microcosmic, yeah, exactly. Yes, yes, right.
Chakra.
A microcosmic Brahma chakra. Yes, without all the animals and elephants and stuff. Only
Very
electrons.
small elephant.
Very small elephants. Yes, and not even that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the elephants can move farther. The elephants can move farther away and close to the nucleus. And when they move farther away, then they get more into the Luciferian world. What did you say exactly?
He said, I said very small elephants,
Yeah.
and he said they're just far away.
This further, they seem small. Yeah.
It's actually a very interesting perspective. It's how we see this atomic thing, because it's very, if we feel it's very far away, then it's very small. But then if you use our mind to be really close to it,
Look
and
close
then
up, yeah.
then it's big.
And then in a sense, everything's a multiverse. If you say that,
mental microscope.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's even the occult power to what's called one of the occult powers to go with your mind into yes. And that's what we're really doing, and that's what these quantum physicists really did. They had so much imagination. What they did was much more about imagination than about analysis. Einstein also said.
Like
So
the guy who discovered PCR, he was on some trip, I think he took DMT or something. Then he went and
Yeah.
was really small and was on the molecules and discovered the PCR technique that we use to make a lot of DNA from
oh yeah.
polymerase chain.
Your mind itself functions on that level, and then in that sense, every atom is a micro universe, microcosm. So therefore, there's a multiverse of atoms. Yeah, but I referred here to just the most rudimental expression of a Brahma chakra, a matter wave. So that's the de Broglie atom. Then we are talking 1920s, I think, early 1920s, and then shortly after that came Schrödinger, and he said no, it's a probability wave, and then okay, it gets really very abstract. And to reproduce the Schrödinger atom mathematically is very awkward. It's very complicated. You don't want to repeat it. They have a thing that's called the Monte Carlo method. It's very, very complex, very bulky, and then you get these shapes, you know. But it works, you know. I mean, Schrödinger, the Schrödinger wave equation is basically used all around in quantum physics. They can reproduce predict experiments. So it's right, but there's a lot they don't know. And then we have what I just called the Sarkar atom, which is based on Microvita steering energy intelligently into the creation continuously. And one of the things, I cannot go into any detail here, but this is one part of research where I'm modeling in a non-quantitative way still, modeling how this could happen. And from this you can really explain the spin formulation. You can explain what spin really is. They don't know. One of the physicists from that time, De Pauli, said in his Nobel Prize discourse, he said, we can create a formula, but we don't know that this is. There's a shadow of doubt over our understanding. We know we can work with it, we know that it exists, but we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. And with microvita science we get much more into, you might say, the ontology of it. So, and within the de Broglie approach, which is correct, but it's only simplified, again you have this pulsation. Because if all the de Broglie waves would be considered together, then again it's just like the heartbeat. They correspond at one point, and then you get a peak, and then you get a pulsation. But normally only one single energy state exists at the same time. So, but the hydrogen atom, Bhava speaks about microvita create original forms of atoms. And in original form, in the prototype or in the blueprint form of the atom, all the energy levels already exist as potentialities. So, and there again, just in between the real atom and the potential atom, which is created by the actional faculty, there's again this pulsation is there. It's again in the same place. Alright? And there's another example of pulsations. Tesla, he was a very intuitional guy. He was not really a scientist because he had no theory, he didn't have any formulas, but he was a very great experimenter and a very great intuitionalist and a very great humanist also. He was a real Satvipra kind of character.
He was a decent mathematician also, I think.
He's not a mathematician at all.
Well, a better mathematician than, what's the other guy, the guy he worked under for a while, Edison.
Yeah, Edison was only an experimenter. He was just putting fibers together until they didn't burn up anymore.
I heard in the end he went really crazy. That's what I heard.
He went really very, very crazy.
Yeah.
His only contact was a dove.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
A dove, yes. But he was also robbed financially. He was robbed by people who were against him. Yeah, there's whole stories about him, you know. And, yeah, they burned down his laboratory, they withdrew his finance, and they completely destroyed his character totally. So this, and there was just to mention, there we are, you missed everything. You will catch up quickly. We were just talking about that electrical pulsations may be very central to how life functions and how life gets some benefits which we cannot get back. We get with technology.
Pulsation, yeah.
Pulsation,
Yeah,
yes.
pulsation, very important.
Like the heart is pulsing.
Yeah, yeah.
I just showed how a hydrogen atom is in fact also pulsing, and I suggest already how chlorophyll is also again forming the same form it, chlorophyll in plants.
But I actually have a very fundamental question here. It's like, what is energy? And when we talk about energy, this in physics, what people think what this energy is.
Yes.
And when Baba talks about energy, does it mean the same thing?
No, what was the point? It's a different thing. But the energy which Baba speaks about, the Purusha, is completely acknowledged. But maybe there is a slightly different definition, because where Baba uses the term energy, he seems to use it like in the same way we normally use energy, like something which comes out of the fire, whatever, you know. But it's more like an equilibrium. And energy as an equilibrium is perfectly known in science and in physics. That is thermodynamics, it's conservation laws. Conservation laws is basically about energy. It can translate into momentum, but basically it's all about energy. The concept of energy exists in how we perceive the equilibrium in the physical world. But that, at the same time, that is what constitutes our physical world. And again, we are completely attuned to that. And if we destroy the equilibrium, then the equilibrium is released as a reduction of entropy, and that we call in everyday life, that we call energy. The destruction of entropy is what we call energy.
What is entropy?
It's chaos, roughly, the opposite of life.
I think
So there's a confusion, and yet there's no confusion at the same time.
Energy is a concept, really.
It's a concept. It's a mental construct.
It's like intersubjective, really.
Absolutely, and it's still made strong, because if you put your finger in a candle, then it hurts.
Yeah.
So we are very much inclined to make it an objective reality, but it's just a destruction of life force maybe, which comes out. And energy, in the sense what Baba is pointing as the Purusha faculty, Purusha, represents the equilibrium. So we have the equilibrium in the external world, and without this equilibrium we could not perceive the external world, because the equilibrium causes coherence and repeating patterns. And that's what you teach a baby. I was just talking to a mother here yesterday. A baby is very much helped when...
I'll be back in a little while. Just continue.
Okay, yeah. Biology calls all that, always, you know.
I think what you said exactly, I totally agree with you. And I think, but what I'm trying to think is, like, I'm just thinking on my head, that there are two levels of these things happening at the same time. One is on the physical level, definitely,
Mhm.
it's equilibrium of
Equilibrium, yes.
equilibrium of energy and stuff like that. But then also there is this on the psychic level, a
Yes.
consciousness level. And then how does these two levels connect together?
That is this style of micro-vitae cosmology, which you just saw. You can go back to it.
Yeah.
This is answering your question, and Baba, and not me, but Baba answered your question. Oh, this is the one. This is the energy equilibrium. So this is the physical field, the planes of physicality, right? Controlled by energy. I can always literally quote Sarkar here. And here's the action, and this is the hidden world. This is called psychic worlds, but this has a slightly different connotation than in philosophy. A different psychological. Psychic worlds is not the same as psychological worlds, you know. It's not related so much to the layers of the mind, etc. So this is it, and the interaction goes through these both reduction phases. Sarkar calls it reduction phases, and this is symmetry breaking going on. And this is this is a synthesis. So synthesis, you get energy, then you get reduction, then you get confinement through harmonic coherence, controlled by positive micro-vitae. Then you get the pure concentrated form of micro-vitae, is the Krita Purusha. That is the actional equilibrium, which is hidden. Then this is expressed again through the second reduction phase as vibrations. But this is not energy vibrations, it's pure vibrations. And within the, let's say, within the jurisdiction of energy as an equilibrium, these vibrations become actually energy vibrations, or matter vibrations, which is compatible in physics. That answers your question. But people generally feel that something we got very accustomed to in philosophy is missing. It's like it's some more empty in a sense. But what is missing here is a duality, which makes us feel so convenient. We feel very happy in this duality. We are doing all spiritual things here, but feel very convenient with our dualistic existence, because that creates substance and fullness in our lives and color and all. Dualism is not bad. It's good and bad, you know. So, and this good and bad stuff, quote to quote, is completely missing in Microvita science. This is very, very clean. It's a very clean approach, so to speak.
No good, no bad, just God.
No good, no bad. No, even God is dualistic because it has this kind of sentimental association. Typically, universal. Bhava says very explicitly, universal entity. Universal entity. No Brahma, no Purusha, no Prakriti, no Shiva and Shakti, for God's sake.
Bhava said in one little discourse, you can find it in Talks of P.R. Sarkar, he says, the approach towards unity may be only I exist, or it may be only he exists.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, there is only exists.
Very clean.
Right?
And I don't know if there's anything for a devotee
So
still there.
practically speaking, then, how do we deal with that in terms of looking around and seeing duality and polarization? We have to deal with it in one of those three ways. Only I exist,
Mm-hmm.
only he exists,
Mm-hmm.
or exists as an ideation,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right?
As a vision.
Yes, and then I mean,
As an effort.
this is typically the spiritual discussion, the spiritual dialogue and discourse we're having all the time. And just the other day I was speaking to one other sister about this very same thing, and then and it was also about the Microvita theory. So how, I think you mean to say that, how do we address this most fundamental spiritual discourse in terms of Microvita science? And then you can say, if you want to, you can say, he or it, consciousness is doing all the actions. If I drop my pen, consciousness is doing it. If I'm drinking water, consciousness is doing this. Every single action, even the movements of the grains of sand, if you're walking, he is doing all the actions. But how he does it, I don't know. But I know the external form of it. In the external form, in philosophy we say, that's your personal point of view, that we are limited, we have limited senses, and the whole story, we know these things, tanmatras, blah, 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 blah. But no, in Microvita science we say, no, that is not intrinsically a personal thing. It's not because of your personal karmas or all these things, also karma, samskara, all the maya, it doesn't exist in Microvita science. It's only the Gya Purusha. And the Gya Purusha is the knowing principle which acts through us as a biological being, making everything visible, because it's a knowing principle. And how that works in physics terms is through conservation laws. We are constantly seeking patterns. We are seeking conserved patterns, basically. And that's what whole physics is about. There's one famous, well, not so famous, but very brilliant female physicist, Emily Noether. She was a contemporary of Einstein, and she was, well, arguably one of the most brilliant physicists also. Noether, N-O-A-T-H-E-R, Emmy or Emily Noether. N-O-E-T-E-R, Noether. Yes, Emily Noether. Emily or Emmy, they call her Emmy. She was brilliant, and she was not recognized because she was a woman in those days, you know. Some friends for her are really fighting for the position. It's quite an interesting story. And she found out that every conservation law has a symmetry law attached to it. And I cannot explain now, and I don't understand it completely probably, but this lays the foundation of all of physics in a very, very abstract sense. That explains really what physics is on a very ontological way, if you wish. So, and this is all controlled by, in Microvita context, by the Purusha.
You know, like the elementary philosophy, like if we take out, like I was talking the other day, there are about like 15 to 20% of the sentences they are edited by the translator, who's not in the original Bengali version. And once you take out those sentences, actually the whole book is, right now I just realized it's one fundamental difference, because the translator kind of emphasized all these distinctions between like Shiva and Shakti, and then the different phases, different elements, you know, they are like very, it's a very big categorized, like these and these and these and this. But actually, if you take out all those extra sentences, Baba basically just talking about it like not a very, I don't know how to describe, not a very like dualistic.
It's not so theatrical.
Yeah, not so theoretical or not so.
Oh, theatrical.
Theatrical.
The editor makes it more theatrical.
Like a drama.
Yeah, make it like a
Yeah.
drama.
Like a drama.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, Baba, the way Baba said it's just a matter of fact, but also he doesn't emphasize like this is.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's completely different.
More playful, more lighter, not so like so heavy, so serious, you know, not so conservative. It's very lightly, but on a very accessible human way, but very subtle, very subtle.
And also Baba talk was very much as a matter of fact way.
Yeah, it's just for him. It's as simple as we talk about anything.
Yeah, and
It's
he
just
doesn't emphasize like this is different, that is different. Shiva and Shakti, they're different, and these two different things, blah blah. You know.
I'm moving on a little bit again. Good point. A very good point. Tesla was experimenting with pulsations. The whole internet is full with many times very good amateur scientists and researchers who are discovering this pulsative energy, and that it seems that you can do funny things with it. And sometimes they think it creates free energy, but that's not really happening. And so I'm doing some tests myself. This is my makeshift home lab. I'm doing some things myself. I hope to have more results. So you were asking about the practicality of it. Here is a field where we can begin to access other sources. I'm not saying other sources of energy, but of other sources of operating our economy and our civilization, which are really sustainable because they are not at all related to thermodynamics. It's not about free energy, it's about developing a consensus, a line of thinking, and ultimately technology to use energy like nature is doing. Just not as a commodity, but to keep energy within the fabric of our own civilization. So not dig up, transport, and spoil energy and waste energy. No, we keep it internal. So all the actions we are doing are controlled increasingly by the Krita Purusha and no longer by the Luciferian Purusha, which indeed, if we worship only this Luciferian Purusha, then it becomes satanic. We should not twist his philosophy to control people, of course. I don't need to mention that. So here I put it together. We have this funny thing, and you can imagine this antenna. They call it an antenna of the chlorophyll. The chlorophyll. You can imagine that it basically picks up different frequencies, just like the heart is picking up different frequencies. The hydrogen atom, the original hydrogen atom, picking up different frequencies. Also, the chlorophyll is picking up different frequencies, and again, the chlorophyll may just also act as a pulse receiver. It receives pulses which are implied in the sunlight. And this again is, there was a working hypothesis, that life does not really use, biological plants do not really assimilate energy from the sun. They only use sunlight as a catalyst to get going, as a template, so to speak, as a way how to know where to move, where to go. Life wants to re-establish out of the atomic world, re-establish its connection with a supreme entity. That's what spirituality is about, and it does so in finding structures, biological structures, which resonate with the inner action of Purusha. So not with entropy, but with syntropy, with synergy. And this antenna does that, our heart does this, the hydrogen atom does it, and Nikola Tesla did it, but he wasn't able to make it practical. You know, this picture here, this collection, here kind of wraps up what I really wanted to get across in terms of new technology. And the most fundamental underlying philosophy is this bifurcation thing. I mean, it's maybe not very difficult, but it's very subtle and really an advanced subject, I might say. I mean, I would really appreciate if you kind of would take this home, that, okay, the real process of creation out of nothing, if you wish, can scientifically be understood ever better and better, maybe not never perfectly, but better and better and better. There are also other really brilliant resources which I never referred to so far here, because that would take us a little bit out of in a different direction. But this kind of knowledge exists, and it's not in any way kind of reducing the devotional quality. It doesn't reduce the devotion, the personal values, the spiritual values. It only emphasizes it. It reduces the dichotomy between science and spirituality. But we need to have the proper science, and the science is very much based on the self-reference. Yeah, you can say it's a working hypothesis, but you see it from so many directions. Everywhere where you get into these kind of things, you come to this point: self-reference, pulsations, etc. So I've tried to make like a collection here, literally almost, where it is kind of proven that these pulsations can exist on the silver lining. Where Bhava says micro-vitae exists exactly on the silver lining of matter and abstract. The silver lining of matter and abstract, in science we know this as the edge of equilibrium. It's a very well known concept. So Bhava says micro-vitae exists right at this silver lining, at the edge of equilibrium. This is all these things.
Can I just extract something?
Yeah.
So you mentioned in the beginning that a lot of the energy, 20% of the energy that we have, people don't know the source it comes from.
Yeah.
It's not from food.
23 they
Somehow
says.
we're creating it.
Somehow it seems to be created. Yes, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So with this self-referencing, and basically what it's leading for is once we know these secrets, we can basically create energy ourselves.
Yes,
Without machines.
but there's a very tricky thing in this because there's a whole pseudo cult around free energy. And then I might quote Einstein: the same thinking that caused the problem can never solve the problem. Or maybe vice versa, he said it. At the moment you start looking for free energy, then again you are thinking in these...
No, I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about not looking for some way of creating free energy. I'm talking about me, myself,
Yes.
creating energy.
No, we need action. We need to benefit from the macrocosmic action directly. We need to start thinking in terms of utilizing the Krita Purusha, and that is the concentrated form of Microvita. We should
the last word you said?
Krita Purusha, the action principle, is the concentrated form of Microvita. That Bhaba's definition.
Krita Purusha, how's it spelled?
Krta. It's defined by Sarkar as the concentrated form of Microvita. So neither positive nor negative at that stage, and then later they...
I just noticed that one thing, it doesn't happen that often, but when I do really intense meditation, when I walk past someone, the electrostatic shocks increase and become quite strong. I can actually
Really?
make people will kind of jump back from
Really?
the shock.
Yeah.
And with the energy coming to a point or being confined or whatever, somehow
Yes.
it's creating a higher level of energy than I do when I'm not that focused. So,
Yes. You have created more like a net entropy, just like this separation between oxygen and oil, let's say in our big ecosystem. In each and every cell there's also separation of charge going on. So, and this separation of charge potentially represents an energy source. It's like a tiny battery.
yeah.
But at the moment this battery is utilized, then you create more entropy. The trick of life is to maintain that potential, to keep it intact.
Yeah.
And therefore, each and every cell has this potential. So now, the working hypothesis is that this energy potential can be built up using something else than energy, and this is this macrocosmic faculty directly. So you could imagine that somehow a hidden quality of sun rays entering the chlorophyll creates a potential in the chlorophyll, and then subsequently that energy is not being consumed, it's not there, it's not being capitalized, it's just sitting there still, and that forms for that cell, for example, the micro ecosystem, a microscopic syntropy or a microscopic net entropy. So microvita, and then specifically positive microvita, is basically just a quantification of that process. So we would need, and she what's her name? Roshni indicated already. It seemed almost to be like a mental or a psychological issue. Maybe not a problem, but it's a matter of viewpoint only, rather than really objectively wanting to change, to create a complete new science. But the change in thinking is that we should stop thinking in terms of capitalizing energy, of using energy as a commodity, only keeping it as a potential, not consummating energy. Maybe that's a good term. The energy is there. How it is created is a different issue. I think this energy potential can be created by microvita, but then to consummate it, it's a step we have been taking all the time since the Industrial Revolution, and that is what's getting us into trouble. And life does not consummate energy. Life does not use it as a commodity. And if life would do that, for example, if you eat a lot of acidic food, it's known that then the polarity in the cells is reduced, and then you get sick. So therefore we eat alkaline, because that helps to preserve the equilibrium. That helps to preserve the net entropy in the cells, so to speak. And that's what we call sentient. So we should have a more sentient form of civilization. And in terms of energy, so we don't need to look for solutions for energy. We need solutions for benefit. We need abundance. We need to think. We need to think in terms of abundance as not something which is given to us by the Luciferian, the Luciferian Purusha, but by the action principle, which in the context of this bifurcation is in some sense more closer to what you might call God or spirit. Both are Purushas, but therefore in this biblical religious context is said that Lucifer is God's most beautiful angel. He's almost like God itself, and he's shiny, and he's there's this movie, The Advocate of the Devil, there the devil is saying, undeniable, I controlled the whole 20th century. It's Al Pacino. You should see it. You know, and there he has his soliloquy as a devil he's speaking, and he is really, I'm the control of the 20th century. Whatever you think, here I am, you know. Join me in my party. Anyway, so, but you can...
The chlorophyll,
yeah.
I remember reading Baba talking about the chlorophyll in relation to sadhana, and in relation to sadhana.
Sadhana, yes.
And he mentioned cows and monkeys, that they can do a type of sadhana because they have so much chlorophyll.
They consume a lot of chlorophyll, yes.
Yeah.
Chlorophyll, and especially, I mean, green leaves by definition are full of it, spinach, etc. And these molecules are much more stronger in their let's say entropic effect. So, and we call it simply sentient than many other molecules. Like chemical sugar you should not eat, you know, this kind of things for the same reasons. But sentient is what promotes life, what promotes, on more technical level, promotes the polarization in cells. But again, not consume it. And yeah, you would almost say by E is mc squared, if you eat and behave and live in such a way that you depolarize your cells, yeah, then you could get cancer, because then the energy is turning into matter. It's maybe not so sensitive to put it so bluntly, but I mean, we have a strong tendency to believe that not eating sentient gets you in worse health. Let's just be very generally. I mean, that's why we eat sentient.
Because everything is vibrational also, it puts you on a denser vibration.
Yeah, it makes the vibration denser, and that which makes vibration subtler is in terms of cell biology, is this polarization. So the idea is, and you missed a lot, but that this polarization can be produced by microvita. And this is something which is not known in science. So you can get this charge separation, which is a source for life through the influx of positive microvita. And again, we can speak about it on quantum level detail now. I have even videos about that.
And so, in terms of energy and like more or less destructive sources of energy, could there be like technology that has like separate, that's like sentient more?
Sentient technology, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mentioned in one discourse that like something like splitting the living cell will release more energy than splitting an atom.
Yeah, you mentioned it somewhere, yes.
That's very interesting how it would happen.
Well, you mentioned, now I didn't think of it, but now we are going through these things. Maybe he meant it in this, and we have also to think about the translation issues, you know. How well is it translated? When the translator thought, oh, maybe Baba meant energy, where in fact Baba spoke about potentiality or so, a single cell has more potentiality to perform some action than a hydrogen bomb. That was the idea. Then he might actually refer to the Krita Purusha. So the idea is that to completely get out of this energy thinking. Like for example, Bill Gates, I think with his best intention, was explaining the concept of carbon footprint during a TED talk. So we're showing for each person we need so much surfaces. Each surfaces need so much energy, and each amount of energy produce so much carbon footprint. It's very simple multiplication. So, but we need to take energy out of the equation. We need surfaces, and not only that, we need an abundance of surfaces. We don't, and that's the kind of the next things here. I want to just skip this then. I'll skip ahead a little bit. What kind of civilization do we want? Do we want to go back to the Fred Flintstone era, to the Stone Age? No, you don't want to. With all respect for some very nice folks hanging around here, we don't want a society which is run by hippies, because they don't run a society. You know, this peace comes from, you know, oh man, this is where it comes from. This is where it comes from. This is the depths of peace, you know.
Fog in the brain.
That is fog in the brain. That's fog in the brain is peace, you know.
It's like a victory also. Like
yeah, but they, you know, it is also peace. But peace, you know, it comes from smoking. You know, you're very peaceful if you're completely fogged.
Robots. That's what I mean.
Yeah, a lot of robots, and we need new technology. But we need sentient technology.
I heard that they will come in the future, some kind. I don't know. It sounded very, very strange. But in the future, there will be some kind of device or computer device or whatever, which takes care for all the needs of the humans, which is so programmed and so sensitive. That takes care that everybody has enough food, housing, clothing, and so on. All these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we can use our times for higher persons.
And such a device, such a robot, should also have a certain, I just couldn't get the word, a certain status, a certain, like a legal status. What's this term for it? Existential.
Value.
Yeah, existential value. That's a very obvious term for it. I just couldn't get it. You know what I mean, huh? Sovereignty. Such machines, if you you might not call it a machine. The body is also a biological machine, but we are humans, and if you treat humans like biological machines, then they lose their sovereignty. That's what's happening in all these dictatorial regimes. They treat people not as people, but as biological machines, as workforce. So we lead let's say, a technology which is so advanced that it can have sovereignty, and then its goal in life, its dharma, so to speak, is to serve humanity, and it will become happy because of that.
It has some, what we forget always, I think, in life also, that really everything is consciousness, because I heard that Bhava didn't kick a stone, because
and our talk went just about over these things, but then
but I mean, about sovereignty, we should give anyway more respect, or more, we should become more sensitive towards what is around
to
us.
the consciousness in everything anyway. And Dada asked a very appropriate question: how do we further cultivate this kind of noble spiritual idea? We're using micro-vitae theory. And then we came to the different, and you were very keen to point it out last year, Dada. He said, after my talk, he said, so if I get it right, then in fact the Purusha does action directly. You said that. Whereas in philosophy, we are really, I was not saying indoctrinated, but we're very much convinced with the idea that Purusha never can do anything directly. He works through his prakriti. But here we say, and very explicitly, the Purusha acts directly, and it's called the actional principle, Krita Purusha. That's doing the action, but it's a different kind of action than in Brahmachakra.
I'd like to ask about, do you have any intuition about like the sentient energy, like is it like practical energy, like to replace the coal and the solar and the solar?
Energy is the sentient principle. Energy is the sentient force in this context. And micro-vitae is the static force. And that seems very controversial at this point, because static and sentient have a very different meaning than in philosophy. Sentient is the expanded equilibrium. It's the but if we consume and capitalize on that sentient force, then it becomes static. And that's what we're doing now. So and that's kind of the bigger and more sentient idea about our energy crisis, and it was the purpose of these two talks, this series.
But everything I've seen about like this, they talk about not collapsing the dipole, or not like not consuming. The idea usually is to consume somehow, like to or benefit at least.
Yeah, from other life, we eat green leaves and then we collapse those dipoles.
Right.
I assume, I don't know so much, but it's an intuition, you know.
Yeah.
But that's how life functions. That's how it works. And we have to eat, and life eats life. Yeah. Life is completely destroying itself all the time. Tigers are eating animals all the time, but in doing so, life as a whole does not destroy itself. And in what we are doing, we are destroying life as a whole. And then we have so-called sustainable solutions. We are getting now into a culture of sustainable solutions, and it can only be successful if it's embraced by the capitalists. So we get neo-capitalism based on sustainable resources, and that's very much promoted now. I think it's better than oil capitalists, but we don't know what's kind of happening in the future. Therefore, I would say let's look still one step further, look into really macrocosmic resources beyond solar energy. And that's the thing about dark matter, which I skipped through now because it was too much. But the sun gets its energy also from something else.
Yeah, so the macrocosmic resource, how do you see that, like in the future? Like some machine that's not that's maintaining some kind of state that gives off a benefit.
Yeah, it produces a benefit. Yeah. Yeah.
Like solutions that haven't been invented yet.
Yeah.
I guess. But maybe some exist already.
It has very much to do. It must be really of a kind of microcosmic nature, like that I was saying. What you were seeing somewhere, that there's a kind of intelligent machine taking care of everything, and well, how that would be done technically, it might be quite similar to how our biological bodies function and how they have evolved. But either way, it would mean by some means or another, using this macrocosmic faculty directly. So everything which we benefit from, our services, are perceived as a result of macrocosmic action. And in a sense, we can do that also, and Roshni really pointed that out. It's just a mental problem. But you can imagine psychology which went on when the oil was coming out of the ground in Texas. You know, when the oil came off the ground in Texas, the guy who discovered it was not an aboriginal. He was a Western potential capitalist. Maybe he was just an innocent farmer. And then a guy in Germany who thought, oh, I can make a cyclic combustion motor out of it, and we can put the oil in the motor, and then bam, there you go. And then they very conveniently forgot their connection to nature, and they make a lot of bucks. And it has been since then. And that is the fundamental claim they have against these so-called Illuminati. It's not a conspiracy. It's just only conspiracy, quote unquote, in this Luciferian kind of thinking, and they worship Lucifer by doing this.
Yeah, there is I will call it more Luciferian. I call it more
Avidya.
Avidya and Avidya.
Yeah, yeah.
Luciferian.
Paravidya, you mean? Paravidya. Paravidya. Avidya is like using occult powers for the, but this is using mundane powers. It's Paravidya. This is Vidya Paravidya.
There was one German physician, or there is, and he was talking about room energy. Raum energy. And he constructed one.
Yeah, I had him in the presentation. Yeah, I can go to him.
Let me see. And he's working on that, but if he will survive is another question, because
Maybe you got it through my mailing list.
No, I've let me see. Who's that? Yeah, Klaus.
Volkamer, yeah.
No, it's not him. It is Tour. It's called Tour. Professor Tour. And he made it also in with 40 euro a month, which he had pocket money. He's no intellectual, but he made a small example of how it could work. And he made it working also
What does it do?
in the nano level.
What does it do then?
He took water, and then he put this styrofoam, and then he connected some device with aluminium foil. Anyway, I don't know exactly, and it started turning. Because the water was like the ball bearing or whatever, and the whole thing started turning. And he is working on the machine. The development cost much, but he wrote also to the German government.
But is the idea also again free energy then?
Not free energy. He said room. He said everything is energy, and the space is endless. So it's not solar. He called it room.
Was it in darkness then?
But I'm not a physicist. I saw only it worked, and I give it to somebody who is a little bit.
The idea is, maybe very general, is that what we call dark matter is just an effect from all the life in the galaxy, also the astrophysical life or the the astronomic life of all the coherence in the whole galaxy. It's created by and also maintains a gravitational field. So each and every cell, each and every chlorophyll, each and every heartbeat creates a little bit of gravity. And I believe really that's how it's done. So and what we call dark matter is just the auto-coherence of the vacuum.